please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right then, so we have the Granby School Committee at 5:35. It's 2 minutes early. Are you guys, is everybody here that's coming, Stephen? Carol?
Yes.
I believe so.
All right, do you guys want to get started a little bit early?
That works for me.
All right, we'll get you out of here as soon as we can then. So we are meeting to go over the statement of interest for the MSBA. For those of you that do not know what that is a document that we need to get into the pipeline to potentially get a new high school. Stephen, do you want to start talking about it?
Sure. So we've submitted the draft statement of interest to you all for your review. We need your approval, the select board's approval, and the school committee's approval to move the statement of interest forward. And Jen, you mentioned a new school building. So I don't know that we've made that final decision yet. I think we could all agree that the school's in need of some significant repairs, and our hope is that we can work collaboratively with the town and MSBA to figure out what scope of work makes the most sense and how it might get prioritized. And if it's a whole building, great. If it's not, what do we need to target first and foremost? So we did move for the core repair, which is a little bit of a larger scope. The accelerated repair through MSBA tends to be for new roof or just windows, things like that. So we hope that this can be the beginning of a conversation between the town and MSBA and the schools to figure out what steps need to be taken.
Okay, thank you. And I probably should clarify, when I use the term new building, I don't necessarily mean a fully new structure, just something that is newer to us.
I understood. I just wanted to clarify for everyone as well. So.
Nope, that was actually very good. Thank you. I appreciate that. So it looks like that we have the priorities that we are including would be the replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems, such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in a school facility, and replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements. Am I reading that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So I apologize that I had not made these comments to you sooner. I unfortunately did not get to read this until today due to everything that was going on this weekend. I don't see anything, everything in here is completely factual and correct. Is it possible to get more of a narrative out of it so that we're telling a story? And the reason that I ask is that I happened to look back at the one that was done for West Street, and it seemed to tell a story. It wasn't, and I'm not saying that this doesn't tell a story. It definitely does, and it's not a pleasant story. But I'm not getting, I want us to have the best chance possible at this. I mean, I don't necessarily know that we're going to get another one. And I don't know. Have you seen the West Street study, Stephen?
We actually used the West Street and previous ones to build this one.
To build this one? Okay.
The West Street one from 2011. There was one submitted for the junior senior high school in 2017, and I believe 2007, another one for the junior senior high school.
Looking to see which one I was looking at. Is there a date on this? I don't even know. Yeah. What was the date of this one, Chris? It's the West Street one. 2011. 2011s? Okay. Yeah, it was the 2011 one, and I saw a very stark contrast in between the two. And again, I know this one is the draft, so I expect that there probably will be some changes to it. I don't know. I wish I could accurately explain what it is that I'm thinking. All right, let me try to collect my thoughts and I'll see if Glenn or Rick, do you guys have anything?
No. I don't have anything at this.
Okay, so they're gonna leave me out to hang me out to dry while I try to.
Yeah, and I don't know if this helps, Jen. I think our goal was to as clearly and concisely answer the questions that were put forth in the document. We tried to leave it as factual as we could and take out any fluff that might be there. There were some things that we did take out regarding like the roof, because the roof was replaced 2 years ago. So we made adjustments based on that. And like I said, tried to answer the questions that they posed as clearly and concisely as we could.
Okay. I will say, I mean,
You're on mute, Jen.
one more meeting of having to unmute myself. Everything in here is exactly what this building is. I mean, there is no doubt about it. I want to make sure that we have the best possible chance for this. Does that make sense? I know that's what you want too.
Yeah.
So I get maybe reading the West Street one and then versus the one for the high school now, maybe this will help illuminate where I'm having issues. So I'm just going to go over the building envelope one. And where it says, please provide a detailed description of the building envelope, types of construction materials used, and any known problems or existing conditions. And yes, there's a maximum of 5,000 characters, so we probably couldn't fit the entire high school in there.
We ran into that a couple.
Yeah. Okay, so it says the brick on many areas of the 1941 building is deteriorating. Some areas are worse than others. The brick below the windowsills in particular is in very poor condition with evidence of extreme efflorescence and water penetration. There is also evidence of water penetration at the precast concrete cap at the north entrance of the 1941 building. This has resulted in severe deterioration of the brick. So of course, the high school does not have the same problems that West Street had. When I read the one from West Street, the original building has reinforced concrete foundation walls and strip footings. The ground floor of the building has concrete slab on grade floors. Primary exterior envelope is a curtain wall system which utilizes single pane glazing and metal infill panels within a metal framing system. So it's telling the issues with the building, but it's not making me see the issues with the building. Does that make any sense?
It does, and I think we also made some decisions understanding, and I don't believe they're assumptions, but like the understanding that the people reviewing this are engineers and contractors by background, so we wanted to make sure that they had the facts, because I think they might see it in a different way than you and I might see it, for example, Jack. Potentially.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what the qualifications are, what their backgrounds are of those who go through this.
Steve, Steve, I would agree. I mean, I'm looking at it, and I think it's more important to have the facts versus be fluff. I think when and I'm not saying that doesn't speak of fluff by any means, but I think when we start adding fluff to it and stuff like that, it brings up, questions, when they start reading and stuff like that, that they're going to pose other questions to us in regards to it. So, and I don't know, has it changed since what, 2011? Has their format changed? Are they asking the same questions they asked back then? Same exact questions? So,
But yeah, very similar, if not the exact same.
All right. So, but like I said, factual is always good, and I think it's easier, as you said, sometimes for the people that are reading it. I'm sure experienced contractors and engineers support. But and to Ben's point, sometimes it does help to give a little um, back history of the building too, as to what we're trying to achieve with the building moving forward as well. Maybe a little synopsis of uh, the overall part what we're trying to achieve for the building itself. But again, I think it read well, and I think if we stick to the facts, I think we're in good shape. But what and I guess it wouldn't hurt to add a little bit in here and there. But what I read, a lot of it makes sense to me in regards to some of the things that need to be done. It's really some of it's just kind of look at to bring the building up to code. So or the building we have, the square footage and classrooms and so on and so forth, the heating system and AC system, and so
The electrical panel, things like that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's definitely and sometimes when you get tied into just answering certain questions, sometimes you're what we're trying to say maybe not come through as strong. So, but I guess we want to do is really get in the pipeline and be heard and get our spot that we need.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with what you're saying either, Jen. And if the board does approve us moving forward with this and they're okay, I'm certainly open to going back and either working with you or the team that we've been working with and trying to add a bit of more of a narrative in places if we think that would help. And part of the reason that we used it in the way that we did, my understanding, and Mr. Martin probably knows better than I, is that I believe it was 2006 or 2007, there was one for the junior senior high school that did get passed through, that didn't pass through town vote. And then 2011, West Street did get passed through and did get passed through town vote. So we tried to model what we were putting in there based off of those two, because our understanding were those two did move through this part of the process, and one moved through the town vote and one didn't.
That being said, Stephen, I have one more question for you. So I know that we had discussed that this is still in draft form. If we agree to approve this today, what types of changes would you be thinking that you'd be making?
Only really to the narrative, and there was one, I think based on your feedback, only adding to a narrative. None of the core content would change. And then we had one question. I don't know if you see it. I don't have page numbers because I'm on the computer app, if that makes sense. But at one point it said, please provide a description of the local budget approval process for a potential capital project with MSBA. And we just put a note in there, like, to talk to you all about how, if there's any way that you would want us to include that, or if we just kind of talk through what the typical process would be. The ones in 2011 and 2007, it was very broad, I would say, the answer to that question, and I'm certainly open to that, but I didn't know if there's anything that you all would recommend for that one, that space. But other than that, no like changes to the core content.
Okay, and I mean, I just want to be clear, I was not worried about that. I truly believe in the integrity that you guys have, so I was not concerned about major changes. I just wasn't sure what you were considering draft form. As to that item that you had just gone over, I mean, personally, I would think that it would be similar to the 2011. I don't think we have to put specific dates in. I mean, Chris, you would know more than that. I wasn't part of the first one.
Yeah. And I don't know that we could put specific dates, sorry.
No, I mean, we could technically put like the, first Sunday in September or something, depending on what our dates were, but I don't necessarily know that we need to if the previous two were very generalized. What do you two think?
Mr. Sullivan, I have a question for you. Is this form like a grant writing form where you're limited to the amount of space you can expand on your explanation of stuff?
Yes, and it ranges anywhere from, depending on 100 characters, 250 to, I think some of them are up to 5,000 or 2,500 characters. So a couple spots we
Okay.
did hit that threshold and had to rework some of our language.
Okay, that explains why you can't put a lot of extra work into it, I guess, or fluff as it's been mentioned.
Well, Steve mentioned fluff from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's Steve's word. I mean, I agree with them. That's Steve's word.
Now, gentlemen, no arguing. All right, do you two have any more questions about this?
I don't think, you know, like you said, unfortunately, I lied to write so much. Unfortunately, I lied to write so much, you gotta kind of rework something you said, which is unfortunate.
I agree.
The only area that I had a concern on also was the process of getting the project approved. In that section, they just put, they're gonna go by whatever the selectmen suggest. We do have a set process to get approval for a project at town meeting.
Yeah, I have no idea what the process is. Could you let us know what that might be or where to find it?
Well, number one, any capital project in excess of $25,000 or a useful life of 5 years or more is supposed to go through the capital improvement committee first. So once you have a proposed project, you go to them, you have cost estimates. Then they make a recommendation. They'll send that recommendation to the selectmen. The selectmen will then forward that to the finance committee for their review also. And then we will set up a town meeting to move forward. Okay. Normally you're going to have to do a feasibility study. Okay. So the first step will be MSBA will get back to you and say, you need to do a feasibility study. That could be anywhere from $700,000 to $1 million, just to study whether the project is viable. Because when you do the feasibility study, you look at projections for student enrollment, you look at changes in operating budgets due to the fact that you have a newer building, newer systems. Chances are you're going to have higher maintenance costs, higher operating costs, things of that nature. Then at the same time, you will have to get an OPM online. You'll have to get an architect online. And then you go through the whole process and you come to the point where you're ready to go for the actual project. Everything has to be submitted to MSBA on a normal basis. And then the final figure is determined. And then MSBA issues you a contract for financial assistance that will give what their percent will be for reimbursement for the town and what the town will have to come up with. And that you bring to town meeting. And 9 times out of 10, that will probably be a debt exclusion vote so that people's taxes will go up while you're paying down the note for the construction or renovation addition or whichever way you're going to go with this for the term of the note. And then once that is all done, then you move forward. And the architect then starts doing all the construction documents and things of that nature. Steve, to answer your question earlier, the high school project that was proposed back in 2006, 2007, that ended up failing because it ended up being not just the high school. It started out as just the high school. Then they included East Meadow. Then they included moving West Street as a wing off of East Meadow. Okay, so by the time you got done, a $50 million project became a $90 million project. Okay,
Gotcha.
that was at the same time that we were going through the interest rates were bouncing all over the place.
Mhm.
And the finance committee had an economics major or economics professor on their board. And he said the interest rates were going to skyrocket to 11% on borrowing. Scared a lot of people. Even though our fiscal advisor said you're going to be lucky if it goes above 5%. Everybody listened to the finance committee and voted the project down. Okay.
Okay.
That's what ended up happening. It started out as a high school, and then it mushroomed to a campus.
Understood.
Okay, but it can't do that now because we've taken care of East Meadow and West Street School. So it will only be a high school project this time when you come around.
Correct. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so Chris, you said a lot and it was all jumbling around in my head. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this, okay? So does the school need to go in front of the capital improvement committee prior to submitting this? Okay, that's just what I wanted to make sure of because that would be a disaster. We would not have time.
When you start moving forward with the project, you will have to go from the capital improvement. Because that's in our bylaws, number one, okay? And you move forward. Once you get ready to do the feasibility study, once MSBA turns around and says, you need to do a feasibility study, right now, you're just gonna submit something. Whether it makes it to the top, whether it doesn't make it to the top, whether it gets rejected, accepted, we don't know. That's gonna be up to MSBA. And on the MSBA board, there's architects, engineers, DESI representatives, DOR representatives, the treasurer's office is represented, okay? And they all look at this and they see if it's a project that should be done. Okay. Additionally, I believe, I don't know if you know about, if you've gone through a recent one, Steve, is they have a coding system of 1 through 4 on building conditions.
No, I haven't seen that.
And I believe the high school wasn't categorized as really a bad building when someone came in and did a review of the building. So you're going to have to fight whatever the category it's been put into. It's a 1, 2, 3, or 4 category. I can't remember exactly what it is, but that was done in the past, and that could work against you. You're going to have to probably fight on that one regarding showing that it has deteriorated to the worst building in the world, so it needs to be replaced.
Yeah, and I think we, just so I'm being transparent, like we had our own internal struggles with, I don't know that you can see number 1 on the priorities list. That was marked previously, but the last line says structurally unsound or otherwise in a condition seriously jeopardizing the health and safety of school children where no alternative exists. We didn't check that, like we were mindful in not checking that. We don't believe, so I think to your point, like we don't believe it is the worst building in the world. It just has a lot of things that need to be taken care of. So, you know, if this starts the conversation and, you know, the town and the schools and MSBA are able to decide and say like, okay, like we're able to prioritize this based on what the town can do, based on what MSBA can do. Hopefully we can start a conversation like that at minimum. If we get to a place where they're saying, oh, we can do everything and it works out, then, you know, we can pursue that, but.
Another question for you is, I believe there was an SOI submitted to MSBA back in 2016, 2017, regarding the high school.
There was, yeah.
I don't know if you want to look at that document, because I think you would probably want to follow along with that one and see exactly what that said. because I'm sure there are people on the MSBA board who retain all their past submissions and will probably compare it to what you're saying now versus what was said back then.
We did use that one, and I think that is the glaring difference is we did not check that number one, and we had some conversations. I hope that doesn't hurt us in the long run, but I feel in some ways it's an honest assessment where maybe in 2007, like, I don't know what they were thinking. I wasn't part of that, but I don't know if checking box number one, like, kind of moves you somewhere on the scale or on the list. So they're more likely to look at you if you think it's structurally unsound. But I don't think it's, like a lot of people have said already tonight, I don't think it's the structure that's the concern in and of itself. I think there's a lot of things in the building that need renovation, updating, up to code, things like that. But we did look at that one too, but certainly we're going to review all of this again before the final submission.
It's Carol Hepworth. I just wanted to add too that we had some repairs, sizable. We had the roof repair. We added ADA new doors and things. So I think that also weighed on us in saying that it wasn't structurally unsound.
And I think it's important that you went with that and commented that way as you did, Steve, as you spoke to, because again, you don't want to put something out there to try to have to defend it. If you truthfully feel that you look at it and the building is okay, some definitely repairs and stuff like that, or have you. I think that's good. I don't think, like I said, you need to put everything in there that you're submitting that can be defended if questioned on it.
Yeah, and it's right. We don't have students sitting in classrooms where we're worried like the ceiling's going to fall on them or bricks are going to, like, that's not where we're at. There's other issues, but it's not specific to the structure.
Stephen, this is due June 26th, I think you said?
June 25th.
June 25th? Do you know what the timeline is from the time we submit to the time we hear something back? The reason that I'm asking is because I know that we have some sizable repairs that need to be done. And I'm wondering if there's something that we can put off until we find out whether we're make it to the next round.
So,
or is that too long of a gap?
Yeah, a couple of things there. I think, I don't know exactly how long. I think, like many things, the 2020 really threw things off. Typically, this application would have been out a lot sooner. So I don't think 2020 applications ended up being due until sometime in December or January of this year. So I think that might have skewed their timeline a little bit. And in terms of like some of the other projects, we're trying to be patient with them, but right, we've talked before, Jen, all these things are happening simultaneously, but one thing isn't necessarily waiting for the other. So we're doing our best to be thoughtful about it and move strategically about it. I think the kitchen repair that's come up before, our thinking is if we can find a way to do that the right way, not putting a Band-Aid on the problem, doing it the correct way. Hopefully if we get into the pipeline and this project's going to be able to get done, our thought is if we do it the right way, the kitchen project, then that's not something that needs to be redone as part of this project. It's part of something that was done. It brought that section of the building either up to code or allowed for the appropriate ventilation, whatever it might be. So not adding to the project or having to do something twice down the road.
Okay, and I have a question because I have no idea how this process works. So let's just say hypothetically we get approved. Do we get to choose which parts of the building we touch, or is that an MSBA decision?
Again, I think Mr. Martin would know better than I, but my understanding is it begins with potentially we're moved into the pipeline, and then they're asking for a feasibility study, which is going to lead to some of those questions being answered. I don't think it's necessarily like you've got this and now you can pick A, B, C, and F projects that you're going to do. At least that's my understanding of it.
I mean, and I know that you and I have discussed it before.
Process.
Yeah, but my biggest fear is that we do something like the kitchen to find out that we now have to redo it all over again. I think that's my biggest fear right now.
Yeah, and I think that's why when, we're talking about the kitchen and things like that, we want to do it the right way. So we're not putting I don't know even the numbers, but say we're not going to put $100,000 Band-Aid on it, because then it has to be done again down the road. If the whole project's going to cost, again, I don't know, 300,000, can we figure out how that we can pay for that because it's done right? And then that part of the building doesn't have to be redone when MSBA, this next project might be done. But I get it. Like, there's no guarantees on either side, right? There's nobody saying like, hey, if you do it this way, you won't have to. But we have these competing needs and timelines don't always match up. And, we're doing the best that we can to make sure the building's in the best shape possible for students and staff.
No, I know you guys are. You're doing, frankly, a great job with what you've got. So I don't think anybody has any complaints with that part of this. I'm just trying to figure out how we can best balance both worlds.
Yeah, and again, I hope this is the beginning of a conversation where we're collaborating and talking and working together throughout. Like I said, if in the end everything works out and it ends up being a completely remodeled school, that's fantastic. But if it ends up that it's the HVAC system and windows and some of the other things, then I think that's fair too. At some point, we might have to make some decisions on what the priorities are that we need to do, and maybe revisit another project down the road at some point and spread things out. Like I certainly understand that too.
All righty. Gentlemen, do either of you have any last things?
I don't.
I think we touched on it.
All right, then I will entertain a motion to approve the SOI.
Sorry, Rich. Resolved, having convened an open meeting on June 9th, 2021, prior to the closing date, the Select Board of Granby, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinance, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts Building Authority the statement of interest dated June 3rd, 2021 for Granby Junior Senior High School, located at 385 East State Street, Granby, Mass. 01033, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Priority number 5, replacement, renovation, modernization of the school facility systems, such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating and ventilation, to increase the energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in the school facility related to the boiler, unit vents, and electrical system. And priority number 7, replacement of and addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with the state and approved local requirements related to inadequate room size, gymnasium, ADA and MAAB requirements, and lack of sufficient classrooms, and hereby further specifically acknowledge that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding committed commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city, town, regional school district to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
I'll second the motion as read for the statement of interest for the MSBA.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, Stephen, so we'll get that signed for you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Thank you very much.
All right, next on our agenda is citizen participation. Is there anybody out there that has anything that they'd like to discuss?
Rich Damaraki, I have a couple points.
Hi, Rich, go ahead.
Okay, I have a comment on the major contracts that the town signs, basically including the fire, police, and highway department. Those are the three major contracts. I would like, I'm asking the select board, after the contracts are signed with these three positions, to post a copy of the contract on the town's website. Because after the contract is signed, the contracts become a public document. And in order to show transparency, the board keeps saying they want to show transparency with the town. There were many questions about the contract at the annual town meeting. And I think this is a good way to alleviate some of those questions. Now, one thing you can do when the final candidate signs a contract, you could put one line in the contract where the candidate gives approval of posting the signed contract on a town website if you think it's necessary. But I think that would be very helpful for everybody to actually read the contract after it's signed. And I'd like to know how the three select board members feel about that.
Okay, first, Rich, did you say police, fire, and highway? I didn't hear the third.
Yes, the highway was the third. Those are the three that always seem to come up and that people ask questions about. I know there are others, but those are the three major ones that I see.
No, I just wanted to make sure that I wrote them down correctly. You are correct. Once signed, they are public documents, and I believe that they are by law available under the Freedom of Information Act. I don't think we've ever had anybody request a contract. No, Mr. Martin is shaking his head no.
Well, the reason why is because it's a hassle. You go down to the town, you ask for a copy of the contract, you got to wait for it. It should be available to the public on the town's website. You shouldn't have to go through hoops to get it. And I will ask the school committee to post the school superintendent's contract also.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and that's always a discussion that we can have, and we can look at this further for you.
But are you in favor of it?
I'm not in favor of not having it up there. I just don't know what our server requirements are. I don't know how much space we have. So those are things those contracts are pretty hefty.
Could the other two members comment, please?
Rich, Glenn Sexton. Hey, Rich, I'll definitely take that under advisement and look at it before I speak out on it. Just to be honest with you, find out what's involved in that and doing something like that, and the ability that we have to do it. And there's any need of permission that we need to do that, because I know it is, as you said, a public record. But also, I'd have Chris follow up with town council just to make sure that we do everything appropriately. So that's I'd reserve my answer until I have a chance to follow up with Chris and go through our town council. But I'm not opposed to any information being withheld from the public at all.
Okay, good. It's very infrequent that actually a town actually signs one of these contracts. It could be 10 years, 15 years. It's not like it happens every year. So, Rick, could you comment on it?
Talking to me, Rich?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, this is Rick Bollier here.
Yeah.
So, again, like Glenn just said, I am all for it. I think it should be on there, but there's a lot of hoops, I believe, that you got to check to make sure it's, like Jen said, fits on the space. But I'm
mean,
not
that's-
opposed to it.
Okay. I have one other comment if I could. I have a concern about the new town bylaws. Okay, I don't want to comment on any specific bylaw, but the question is whether the town is indirectly switching the form of government of the town from town administrator to town manager. And the main reason is because there are major changes in the authority and responsibility given to the town administrator now, whether it's hiring, firing, raises, looking at personal information. It may fit the definition of a town manager. Now, I've looked at the town of Harvard, Massachusetts. They went from town administrator to town manager not too long ago. They formed an executive committee and they wanted to find the best way, the easiest way to switch if it was necessary. And because this would be a home rule issue, they actually used the Home Rule Special Act, which requires the town to get approval from the state legislature and the governor. So I just want to bring it up just as a point. You may want to ask the town attorney. Someone reading the changes to the bylaws feels like, without knowing what the town administrator does now, that there's a major shift in authority and responsibility, and it may verge on switching town government to a town manager. I mean, there's a gray area in how much authority you can give the town administrator now. So it may not fall in that category, but it also may. So I just want to bring that up. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Much appreciated.
Okay.
All right. Moving on. Departmental reports.
You asked for the board.
Reports.
Those are the most recent ones, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen them, I've read them. I don't have any questions or comments.
Beat me to it. So in that case, I will entertain a motion to approve.
$2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. We're good with that one. So now we have maintenance warrants. Mr. Martin.
You have 3 warrants in front of you. You have warrant number 71 dated 5/21/21 in the amount of $265,278.05. That is a bill paying warrant. You have warrant number 72 dated 5/28/21 in the amount of $443,797.36. That is a payroll warrant. And then you have warrant number 73 dated 5/28/21 in the amount of $465,721.84. And that is the maintenance warrant that goes along with the payroll warrant. And it also includes our payments for our monthly health insurance premiums.
I'd like to make a
I'll second Rick's motion.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty, does anybody have any old business that they'd like to discuss? That they've got? Well, I know Rick doesn't. Do you, Glenn?
No, just so everybody knows, we'll be starting our search committee for our new police chief starting tomorrow on Thursday. So we go a meeting coming up to discuss that. And kind of keep you informed of what's going on with that.
Perfect, thank you. I can't wait to hear. Mr. Martin, is there any correspondence?
Actually, I have a couple. I have in front of me a couple of rentals for Two Frame Park. First one is on August 3rd, 2021. It is a summer concert to be held at the gazebo and the lawn area. Arriving at 4:30 p.m., departing at 8 p.m. No liquor, maximum number of people is 200. And then we have a graduation on June 26th, 2021, arriving 12 p.m., departing 6 p.m. Liquor, none at this time, maximum number of people, 100.
So just those two for Dufresne's?
Make a motion that we approve the Dufresne rentals as read by Mr. Martin.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What else do you have for us, Mr. Martin?
In front of you, you should have a copy of a letter that was received from Brett and Brittany Merrill. They are requesting permission to be able to maintain basically a traffic island that is on the corner of West Street and Cold Hill. And what they want to do is to be able to maintain it like other ones have been being maintained, like the one on the corner of Pleasant Street and 202. They'll go in, they'll make sure it's mowed, mulched, kind of flowers, maintain it. And they like to do it in recognition of Marty Merrill, who gave much to this town in the past.
I saw that letter and I have to say, I think that is a wonderful way of honoring someone and making our town look pretty. Thoughts, gentlemen?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good idea. I didn't know, looking at it, it talks about addition of a small bench. I would just make sure that that bench doesn't impede anybody's view when they're driving and so on and so forth with that. The only concern I have, and it's also the concern with the island located on Pleasant Street and 202, is when people are out there doing work to it, especially 202. That's a high traffic area. It is dangerous for people to be out there. You see people out there doing stuff to it, which is great. However, you have people that are out there, they're bent down, they're kneeling and stuff like that. Sometimes it's hard for vehicles to see them when they're there. It's a dangerous intersection. So as this got brought up, and I'm glad it did because it's something I wanted to bring up. Anyways, I think we should be looking at that when we have people that are in those areas of high traffic. And I know Cold Hill, there's not high traffic, but there is traffic up there. So again, when people are doing work like that and they're out on the road, we need to make sure that we're taking precautions to protect that particular person that's there or people that are there, but also the motorists that are driving through there too. So that's something I think we should, speak with the police department with, 'cause last thing is I want to be, talking about an accident that someone got hit or someone got hurt out there.
Those are completely valid points. And I just want to make sure that I'm picturing the correct area. So we're talking West Street, we veer left, we go to Cold Hill, we veer right, we go to South Hadley. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was picturing the correct spot because I don't always use street names.
I was muted. It is the one with the Cold Hill sign on it.
All right, do you want us to vote on this? All right, I will entertain a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second Rick's motion.
Any discussion?
Again, I would just bring up, with this being said, that there is some collaboration with the police department in regards to safety when people are out there working, especially on this project. And also look at, it's talking about addition of a small bench, addition of a sign or two. So make sure that those, again, where those signs are located, size of the sign too, because we do have bylaws. I don't think those signs would be above what's allowed. However, again, to make sure that there's eyes on this to make sure that there's no issues or concerns. It's just not we're going out there letting people do what they want to do. We're having some oversight on it.
All right, and I actually would like to say, I'd like to extend my appreciation to Brett and Brittany Merrill for taking the initiative to take this on. It never hurts to have citizens working towards beautifying the entire town. So I do appreciate that. That being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, apparently I was on mute that whole time, so let's just do this again, gentlemen. I apologize. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I didn't get a second to respond. Okay. No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, so I actually have a couple things that I'd like us to do for our next meeting. It looks like we finally have a little bit time to breathe because we've gotten some past issues taken care of. I would like us to, for our next meeting, come up with a wish list of what we would like to see happen in this next year. It's a wish list. If you could accomplish anything, what would you like to accomplish for the town? Glenn's looking at me like I am losing my mind.
Well, I just don't know. I mean, a wish list, if you kind of need some kind of more direction as to what you're looking for, Jen. That's all.
Nope, I'm looking for if you could tackle one project or issue or something in town, what would it be?
Okay.
You can do that for me? All right. Much appreciated. On that note, someone want to move to adjourn?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, good night, everyone. Thank you.